Professor Chris Mustafa Nwaokobia. You're welcome to Njenje Media TV.
Pleasure is mine.
The 2023 election has come and gone. The judiciary has made a decision. Nigerians have moved on. And from the elections that happened last weekend, we can now see that there appears to be an effect of the 2023 judicial pronouncement, where we physically are now seeing a case of grabbing it, running with it, and doing away with everything. In Kogi State, we have seen where one person was accredited in a polling unit and over 350 people eventually voted, apparently. Looking at everything that has happened so far, from the court to the, back to electioneering, and Nigerians appear to have moved on. What do you think is the next big thing for Nigeria?
Well, I don't think the Nigerians have moved on. I really don't think so. And let me say very clearly that 48 hours before that election, I wrote a piece I captioned Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa don't expect peaceful, fair, and transparent elections. Now that snatch it, run with it is in the saddle. And every predictions I made in that piece has come true. Every prognosis of mine in that piece has come true. People were killed, boxes snatched, doctored results, and then the most um, um, embarrassing of it all was the figures from Imo State, for instance. The number of votes cast allegedly for the winner was more than the number of accredited voters. I think the total accredited voters was less than 500, about 400 and something thousand. And then the votes are allocated to the so-called winner, the incumbent governor of Imo State, was well over 500 and something thousand. That's how bad it was. Then in Kogi, like you noted, overvoting. The number of those accredited, there were local governments that had as much as 140,000 votes coming in, precisely in Kogi State. And then Bayelsa, each local government took about 2 days to collate the results of 8 local governments. And that was because people wanted to doctor the figures. And unfortunately, people were ready to step out to the streets and burn down things. So I heard from reliable feelers that calls were made even by the former president, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, regarding what was happening in Bayelsa, such that at the end of the day, it was more like, okay, let Bayelsa be, so that we don't bungle everything. Now, the question is, can you truly say you have a democratic order without free, fair, and transparent elections? Can you truly say that you have an order that you can be proud of and call a civilian administration where the rights of the people to vote is respected when the transparency of the electoral process is being mortgaged? Can you say, can any sane Nigerian say that he trusts this independent national electoral commission? The answers are simple. We saw what happened in February, precisely on the February 25th, and we saw what happened in March. We saw how much of electoral larceny, how much of corruption of the electoral process that was prevalent. And like you noted, the judiciary appeared to have given a clean bill of health to the worst electoral process and protocol in our country's history. And you don't sow yam and expect to reap cassava. You don't sow cocoyam and expect to reap cassava. That's exactly where we are. The democratic process has been badly strangled, badly stultified, badly messed up, and unfortunately, Nigerians are crying for something different, something better. And that's why I said to you, the Nigerians haven't moved on. Go around the social media, talk to the electoral observers. They will tell you that this is worst period of our 24 years of democratic practice. This is a moment of deep soul searching. I hear that there's a movement already that is threatening to have a national showdown along with students, calling for free, fair, and transparent elections. And Nigerians are increasingly saying that this is not what they want. This is not what democracy is. And I hope, like I said at the end of that article I wrote, I hope that something gives. Because if we do not redesign, if we do not redefine, if we do not reappraise, if we do not draw new moral margins on our collective canvas, then we're in trouble as a people. Our moral margins are messed up. We have an order that nobody's truly proud of. It's more like, you noted, grab it, snatch it, run away with it, and now a new line has been introduced. Kill for it if you like. And because the man who is at the center of our administration, the man who is in the saddle, the man who is the president, believes that power is not served a la carte, believes that whatever you do to get power, there's a new cliche, and that's what is very instructive in what the young man who came second in Kogi said. He said, for him, there's no need going to court because it's the same people who have abridged the electoral process that are in charge of the judiciary. So that's the challenge we have. He said, how can you go to court? Why am I going to spend my money in court when the judiciary will, just like they did with the presidential election, affirm the winner? When you say, if you don't like it, go to court, by reasonable implication, what they're saying is that we own the courts. So if you come to the court, and be sure you're going to lose to us because we control the security agencies, we control INEC, we control everything. And it is a tragic, very tragic spate, very tragic space, and very tragic place for our democracy. Because when the right of the people to vote and the right of the people to have their votes count and the right of the people to be sure that their votes counted is not recognized, then we're in trouble as a people, not only as a nation, but our democracy is in trouble. And that's where we are.
Are you then insinuating that you mentioned the streets, the Twitter space, basically the X space? Are you insinuating that the young Nigerians are not taking it lying low, that they, at some point, may rear their head to say, or rather demand that enough of the madness?
They're already doing that. The whole of yesterday, the whole of 2 days ago, I was invited to a few spaces. Of course, I've told myself, listen more and understand the heartbeat, understand the temperament, and understand the temperature of the young people. And I tell you clearly, they are heavily disappointed. I tell you clearly, since the 26th of October, when the Supreme Court gave its judgment, I didn't see young people rise up in unison like they have done over the past 1 week, and maybe particularly provoked by the electoral larceny that took place in Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi. So they're saying, we'd rather say no to this subterfuge. We'd rather say no to this electoral malfeasance. We'd rather say no to this larceny and die, if need be, saying no, than to acquiesce to an order that has no sense of decorum, that has no respect for due process, that has no respect for the rule of law. And so I do sincerely believe, Mazi, that something will give.
Yeah, but Prof, if I take you back, the people on the street, they will say, oh, what we need is action. But it appears there is no action, be it from the announcement of the presidential election, when the Nigerian populace expected that, those who thought that this madness was getting out of hand should have probably taken to the street, even in the case of Imo. You said You just mentioned here how the election was rigged, in terms of the number, the inflation of numbers. Yet there is no single soul in Imo State that is on the street. Just oppose that too. In March, when the election in Abia State happened, in the process of rigging that election, the people of Aba trooped to the street saying, "No, we burn down this city if this election is rigged." If you just oppose the two, what do you think happened in Imo State, Kogi, and Bayelsa State?
Let me say clearly that that's part of why what we have been saying is the challenge of leadership, the leadership bar, the leadership margins, the emotions and temperament of leadership. Interestingly, you just cited Abia State. The man who, as it were, won the Abia State election was there on the street with the people. He didn't exude any fear of a prison yard or the fear of the bullets. There's something called leadership. Tragically, and I say this without a provocation, after the February elections, Nigerians expected, particularly the obedience, that Peter Gregory Obi would challenge the people to responsible and responsive action. And what do I mean? Like you noted, we expected that he was going to outrightly reject the result rather than just say, I have faith in the judicial process. And in Abia State, Alex Oti and the supporters of the Labour Party said, no, right must be done. They said, no, we're not going to allow INEC to announce the wrong person as winner and then tell us to go to court. And so, if you remember what happened, they had to lay siege on the INEC office. So much so that the person in charge had to run down to Abuja and tell those who were in charge in Abuja that she wasn't going to announce just anybody. She was going to announce, and that's why she is up till now the heroine of the February March elections. That's Professor Nena. And as I talk to you, what is important here is the fact that yes, Nigerians said, okay, let's see through the judicial process. On the 6th of September, uh, Justice Samani's panel read what was more of adherence to technicalities over due process and over justice. Unfortunately, we thought that the Supreme Court was going to say, let's do justice. But they affirmed technicalities over justice. And then we had the presidential candidate of the PDP refuting and repudiating that electoral malfeasance and larceny. Peter Gregory stepped out to say, "Oh, it's revolution postponed. That the Nigerian people have the right to agitate for that which is proper and right." But you know what? The steam had died down a bit, and the off-season, off-cycle elections of Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo came up, and now the people on the streets have been provoked. That is why the young people are saying that in a few days they're going to step out to the street to protest. They're going to say no to this era of electoral larceny and corruption. They're saying no to Mahmoud Yakubu and an INEC that is essentially compromised. And I want to say to you and to Nigerians that there comes a time in the life of a nation where questions must be asked, and that's where we are. If after 24 years of what we call a democratic process, our electoral process has come down from maybe 40% to about 15%, then we have cause to worry. And that's why young people, the generation that all they have seen, the people who if you were born in 1999, you can vote now. So we have a generation of young people who all they know is democratic or civilian rule, and that they expect that this civilian rule will be responsible, will respect their rights to vote. And because it is not doing so, they are getting angry. And I hear,
Are they really
Mazi,
getting angry?
they are getting angry.
So don't you? Because what I hear, what I feel, is that the Nigerian youth or Nigerian citizens are saying the 2023 election presidential was not done right. This off-season election was not done right. They are basically walking away from the political space, leaving probably the space now for cucumbers and carrots to basically occupy that space. Don't you think that that is what is befalling us now?
That's not what I see actually. I interact with a lot of young people. My phones have never been as busy as they are now. And that's because young people are asking for leadership, they're asking for direction, they're asking for, perhaps if you like that cliche, who will bail the cat? And they're saying, who will tell us that it is not yet Uhuru? And if you're telling us that it is not yet Uhuru, who will give us a sense of leadership and sense of direction? And who will tell us exactly how to engage in this battle? And who will help us say to the world and indeed INEC that we are tired of this electoral larceny? And let me tell you, Mazi, that clearly before us, this young generation of Nigerians are saying never ever again. They're saying no. It was a young man who called me up and said to me, did you follow the elections in Imo State? And I said, what would you have me know? And he said, I'm sending you the full total of accredited voters. A young man, precisely about 24. And I looked at it. He said, you can confirm from every other sources. And then I reached out to one of the aspirants, and his deputy sent to me the exact figures. You had an election that had less than 500,000 accredited voters. The total number of accredited voters was less than 500,000. And you had one candidate that was a declared winner, and he had over 500 and something thousand votes. You're not even talking about the votes allocated to the second person and then the third person. Between Labour Party and PDP, they had about 130,000 votes. So in a state where you had less than 500,000 votes, you had a total number of votes announced that was over 700,000. Who does that? They don't even know how to rewrite. They take everybody for granted, and because of the new cliche in town, go to court. That new cliche that has translated to we own the courts. But for how long are you going to do that? Njenje, what comes to mind for me as I discuss Nigeria is that inimitable quote of Khalil. He said, no lie can live forever. And then it was William Colin Brown who said that truth crushed to earth will rise again. That's where we are really. For those who celebrate, oh yes, we have been announced winners, and so anybody who disagrees can go to court. There's a day for falsehood. But you know what? The victory of truth over falsehood is definite. And I tell you, that's my worry for our country, that those who take for granted the aspirations of the Nigerian people, the expectations of the Nigerian people, will definitely meet their comeuppance. And you ask yourself, for instance, those who won, quote unquote, the February 25th election, you ask yourself, why is it that they are unable to start the process of governance and leadership? And I'm speaking deeply here, that rather than address the fundamentals of leadership, they're going cap in hand around the world begging for funds. And then the most embarrassing of it all was what happened in Saudi Arabia, where our president and those who went with him to Saudi Arabia said, oh, we've been able to strike a few deals. And whilst they were telling us that, an Air Peace flight that had come into Saudi Arabia with Nigerians were denied visa on arrival. And that's the height of embarrassment.
And the president was still in Saudi Arabia.
And the president was still in Saudi Arabia. That's the height of embarrassment because they understand the reality. The world is about responsible leadership, not about facade, not about, do you know what bothers me truly and very deeply is the fact that we seem to have elevated falsehood, perfidy, deceit, debauchery, and perfidy to an act of state. We have leaders who lie. And they say, okay, yes, just lie to the people. Remember, it happened a few months ago when they told us that the UAE authorities, Dubai, had resolved issues about travel, visas, and all that with Nigeria. And whilst they were telling us that lie, the authorities of United Arab Emirates made a press release saying we didn't discuss any such thing and we haven't taken any action. That's how bad it is. Debauchery, deceit, and perfidy. And I think that the time has come for us to understand that no lie can live forever. The time has come for us to understand that truth crushed to earth will rise again. The average Nigerian people know who won Kogi election. They know. The average Nigerian knows who won the Imo state election. And they truly know. And so, for as long as we continue to live a lie, the challenge is like, you know the story of the insect and the story of the maggot. You also know the story of the earthworm and how the maggot burrows in the earth. You know, what we have today is an uneasy calm. What we have today is a piece of a graveyard. Those who think that they have won the war have failed to understand that you just might win the war. But what happens with the victory? The victory will be scored by the Nigerian people. So I worry deeply for our democracy. I worry deeply for our electoral process. And I worry deeply for the masses of our people.